and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am.
So hello there and welcome to this video topic today with me, which will be another channel message. And what I really felt called to bring forth is the combination of unity, this oneness we experience with the whole, with everyone entering into a reality, and the discernment, which is the application of healthy boundaries, because we all talk about boundaries at the same time we talk about union and oneness and true unity, which on earth still has a value through which we have to use the filtering. And I really wanted to bring through a message of the group consciousness, of the Elohim, about this filtering process and why is it so important for us, and to keep things, to keep information, to keep our reality in the purity that we have established within our own Illumined union, and not allow simply everything to enter just because we have this false idea of oneness and unity. Because true oneness, true unity means that we have to also go with the flow of synchronization, which is the kind of values that align with our values, the resonance which aligns with our resonance, and not feeling guilt or shame about it. Because in this New Age community, there is a lot of talking about we're all one, we're all the same, there is no filtering, there is no boundaries necessary, and this requirement goes only when you still live in duality. But the truth is, even when you yourself don't live in duality, there's people who still do. And not necessarily this will have to do with the filtering process. You won't always have to deal with individuals who are extremely polarized within themselves. But sometimes you will also deal with individuals who simply have veils around them. And what I'm shown is a lot of times when we share certain information, we share something that is within the light of truth, and what I call the illumined truth. A lot of times it kind of falls onto this ground of people who will always perceive it and dissect it in their own way, through their own awareness, where they're currently residing. And a lot of times what happens when I'm witnessing myself is that there's a certain truth, and that truth goes out, and then let's say an individual receives that through words, videos, it doesn't matter, it's just information comes through in, you know, in any of the possible ways in this endless stream of light. So the individuals that a lot of times have these it's kind of like mental tendencies to be a certain way, to be a certain spiritual being, and what they a lot of times do is they will process that purity of truth but through their own filters, and they will give you feedback in their own way in terms of, yes, this is how it is, but you know, the energy information will travel through the same purity anymore. So what will happen is you will, on the other hand, be the recipient of that which was filtered through their own filters, and now you as a conscious being, you have this discerning right to filter that in the same way, but with a different connotation, which of course comes from unity consciousness, which means unity consciousness truly, I'm shown, embraces all perspectives, but still holding the maintenance, the fortress, the pillar of what you feel is in absolute alignment with you. And if you are a way shower and pillar of certain type of, you know, it's kind of domain you are here to harness and share that with the world, and you feel there's people who sometimes misinterpret that. It's not always within the dark. People always say, well, people who are negating what I'm saying, it's not, that's not the only extreme. The other extreme is perhaps people who put too much false light on that information, which is wishing to, wanting to, but not that yet. It's not embodied yet. So when something comes to you back as feedback, and you will feel it through your own discernment, that it's no longer pure, that it has something that it just doesn't vibrate with what you've put out, then you'd have to use the right filtering. And I'm being shown that a lot of volunteer souls, pure souls, ancient old souls, we still sometimes feel guilty because we are so discerning. We are so naturally filtering. This quotient of light makes it possible for that to be so in our own embodiment, that we just know what we know, and we know when something's off. We don't have to analytically approach that or understand it, but we do have to be the pillars to somehow approach that as not coming back to us anymore as the sacred version that we've put out. So I want to bring through a message of this, how to work with our inner purity and at the same time the highest level of discernment, and using the right filtering for that to be so in the proper, most attuned way, without feeling shame or guilt. Because a lot of times we feel, well, we don't want to, kind of like, we don't want to exclude someone from the group because they're sharing something that does not resonate or feels off. And it's not what you're sharing, it's not what I'm sharing. It comes back and you feel somehow, there's a misalignment. But at the same time, you feel you also don't want to exclude that from the whole. So do you know the kind of natural system of filtering I was shown when I was contemplating and pondering on this topic was our body. Our body has, as you know, infinite amount of cells, and it has so many processes, as well as metabolic processes, hormonal processes, nervous system. It's all being directed. But at the top, of the director of the director is the life force that streams forth. And then all these operational processes, they come later. So when something is being offered to the body, or something that's not resonant, something of the lower frequency, or something that's misaligned with the truth. Now we're going to go to the physical aspect of this, which is you eat something and it's not really aligned with your high frequency. And the body somehow finds a way to tell you no, or to refuse that, or not really fully wanting to digest it, or, something like that. But there's also on your cellular level, the body is so intelligent, and the body knows how to filter and how to eliminate certain toxins and frequencies that come through those toxins that would be detrimental for the body itself. So you see, the body does not feel guilty to eliminate something, to say, no, that's poisonous, no, that's toxic. But with our mind, we often have this judgment or guilt every time we want to filter something, because we say, well, that's no longer in unity. We're no longer unified. And it was the New Age concept that brought us this false idea of unity, which is you have to simply embrace everything. Of course, you have to allow everything, because everything will be, either you allow it or not, it's going to exist. People will have their experiences, they will have their interpretations. But when you start to value the sacredness of life, and you understand certain sacred laws, and something, as I've said, comes back to you as feedback, and it doesn't feel pure anymore, it feels something's glued onto that vibration that you did not initially put out. So at those times, we have to be as wise and discerning as our body, which means the body naturally eliminates or initially refuses certain frequencies through certain substitutions, or how to say that, substances, or certain substitutions that really take place in our body because of these higher processes. So I really wanted to address this because it's so vitally important for a sovereign being, that this guilt factor, the shame factor, to be this, that you are in this frequency of a knower. You detect something that's falsified. A lot of times I share things, I'll give you one example, about the sanctity and the purity and the sacredness of divine illumined union. And I talk about illumined union. That's not just about relationships and romance and things like that. And then when people read that, of course, every one of those readers that receives that information will filter it, of course, through the awareness they're currently embodying, things they're currently understanding, and experiences they're currently having in their life. And that's perfectly natural and perfectly fine and completely aligned with the unity of all, and all concepts being valid and all experiences holding form at a certain level. But when an individual would approach you, or an information you share through saying, yeah, but this is how it is, or, certain something that they would share that feels off, and you feel that's no longer what you're here to share, what you're here about, how do you naturally align with the filtering process without feeling you're being exclusive, that you're still all-inclusive? Is naturally you're not judging the person for what they believe, what they're experiencing. But it's becoming so vitally important that through our own sovereignty, the sacredness of life and its stream of life force information we've embraced and embodied remains intact, remains pure. So that is what we are devoted to. And that is why recently I had a dream guidance that said, you have to know what you're devoting yourself to. Because a lot of times we feel, okay, I have to devote myself to people who have to have this idea of what I'm about. And I have to be always loving and affirmative and always nodding my head and always representing this unity. But that's not what true unity is about. Unity means that you are so unified with the core of the truth and creation principles that are inherent within it, that you don't back down for even one slight misadjustment or misalignment. Do you see? So that's in truth true unity. It's not now that someone brings you a little different information, you say, okay, I have to be so united, I have to be so devoted to this, what is a false perception of unity a lot of times, that I need to act this way, and you're already going against yourself and you're not authentic and your frequency starts to lower in a way. So it is so vitally important to honor both that, the openness, the embracing of all, the allowance of all, and then invitation of into your sacred space of what is sacred. They had these ancient mystery schools where not everyone was invited or included in them. It had to be filtered through the certain consciousness of people. Or there's examples of certain vibrational keys that are placed within ancient libraries or pyramid structures, that only those with the capacity or the right heart frequency or a certain ancient knowledge or understanding, they could open that, they could unlock that knowledge. So this is the same for what you feel somehow belongs to your space or is in the belonging space of the group you feel you somehow embody through the group consciousness, which of course is then reflected through people around you. So sometimes there will be those who won't resonate, and sometimes there will be those who I say are just curious, and they come for a while, they say, oh yeah, this is how it is, this is what I'm experiencing. I don't want to use that voice, high-pitched voice, but to discern what's me and what's, playing someone else. And they will have perhaps their own experience, but you somehow will feel, well, that's not what I really meant to when I shared this. And you will have a choice, whether you still nod your head and you feel I'm devoted to this, what I perceive as unity, or what are you perceiving as sacred. And this is what I'm shown now, that what is truly sacred is supposed to be more honored, and through the frequency of Gaia and the true resonant keys that hold the potential of Illumined DNA for our Illumined human self. That is what we now need to devote ourselves to, rather than just being in alignment with what we feel has to be somehow existing because we're human creatures and we need to merge with the groups, or we need to somehow be social. And a lot of times, personally on my own path of sharing this Illumined truth, I will feel when someone is just curious, or I will feel when someone is projecting what I share and putting it in a certain box of what is their framework of experience, but it's not that yet. And it's okay, but I feel more and more this call to, allow only certain things to become a part of this, what is most sacred to you, what is most sacred for you that you came here to share as a volunteer soul. So there's a lot of people who also, when you talk about things like that, ascension, the white light, working with the pillar, they get very infatuated with it, but they don't do the work on these higher levels. They're still doing the inner work, the inner alignment, and that's okay. But they're not yet resonating with this higher laws of aligning with creation or sacred service and selfless service to the whole. And in most cases, these people are still learning. Because you have to become fully, completely unconditional within yourself to become a sacred offering of life. But those of you who have achieved this state, who have aligned and merged completely in a way through this frequency, you will have to now maintain that, preserve it. And that is why it is so important to keep yourself at this highest maximum capacity of what you know with your whole heart that is right, in alignment with your mission, with what you share as light information and how divine love flows through you, which will require on earthly ground, on earthly base, as well a certain process, a certain amount of filtering. Okay? So I hope that was clear enough. At least the mountains behind me I hope are clear as the view. So now let's just see if there's any additional information, although this was already channeled as I was speaking, because there is no division or separation between what I share. I'm just closing my eyes now and seeing if anything else wants to come through about this process. So let's ask the family of light to join as one, merge with the sacredness of life, to show the way of the white illumined light, and give a message that would bring deeper understanding to those who are naturally aligned with the understanding frequency, so they would somehow resonate on a natural and organic way. Dear beloveds, we're gathered here today again to discuss a very important subject, a subject that many of you would not address many times because it feels in a way uncomfortable. On earth, it still a lot of times feels uncomfortable to be fully authentic, to be fully exposed and fully seen. Because once you are, there will be a full openness, there will be a full transparency to what you do, through who you are, through the energy essence you are embracing as the new human. Because of that level of transparency, the unity will become rather self-obvious to those of you who are waking up and embodying this pathway. But many times it will also be, in a way, unfamiliar. You won't always know what is of this unity and what is of separation. And because of that, because these shifting times are bringing an opening to new perspectives, you will sometimes question your own perceptions, your feelings, your intuitive hunches, and the way you wish to act upon them. So when you become fully transparent, sharing everything within divine selfless service, you will be exposed to the great majority of people, perhaps, which means people of all walks of life, people from different levels of awareness. That will, of course, align with the frequency of your own inner union, which means you are a mirror, a reflector to all. For the vertical pillar has been established, which means you are mirroring everyone on different levels of that vertical alignment. However, at a horizontal process, when we start to merge deeper with that understanding, that won't always be reflecting your light quotient as to what you embody. And on the other hand, because you are here of selfless service, you're still needing to deliver to the whole. So where does filtering come into this equation of the divine self and your own union? That is a very interesting topic to talk about. And there is no human being that would be fully pleasant in this awakening, because everyone, as of now, still has a little bit of the quotient left that says, but what will someone think if I act this way? But what will someone perceive of me when I perhaps act as in a way that others might perceive that belongs to the path of exclusion, when I truly am not? And how to know that I'm not? These are some very serious questions, because to unify with the self means to unify with all. And yet to unify with the earthly counterpart, with the physical vessel, with the physical mission of the soul being lived right here and now, also requires a process of filtering. Because imagine if you were here as projecting the whole vertical expansion into your horizontal experience, you would have too much at your stake, too much on your plate as a physical human being, because there is only one of you now in this fleshy form. So in this way, filtering is very important, and it is a part of the earthly human experience because it directly matches the path of discernment. And there is no black and white rule that says when you act this way, you are in unity. When you act that way, you are in separation. It will always be inherently connected with the incoming frequency that does not come from you directly, that perhaps is a projection of something outside of you, although there is only one. And there is the unification of all experiences. And yet, when you understand the horizontal path and alignment of that which most harmoniously aligns with you and what feels so sacred to you, filtering needs to be applied and needs to be approached with just the same amount of sacredness that the allness and the inclusion of all does. So let's say there's a certain someone, or perhaps a few, that when you tune into their frequency or their feedback of what they kind of share with you, something does not resonate or something always feels off. And on the earthly interpretation way, a lot of times you would call that, I don't like this, or I don't even like this person, because we always kind of associate it with personality level. On earth, a lot of times that is what takes place. How to transcend that and how to see it not as in not liking this individual or this person for what they share, but simply seeing and feeling the stream of information that comes through them and something being a mismatch to the harmonic field of what you've created. So that's the first step of this awareness, is to see everything as frequency, the outgoing and incoming frequency. Is that frequency and harmonic resonance? And that is something that cannot be looked into only by connecting to the, the words that people are saying, the interpretations they're giving. It has to be achieved, and it can only be achieved through reading the energy behind the words, actions, and deeds. Because again, there is no black and white scenario. There is no rule when something applies in the same way for all situations, because it doesn't. And that's the path of mastery. It's the discovery of the inner light quotient that can tell the difference as you're tuning into everything as frequency, and whether it is harmonic or whether it's non-harmonic and non-resonant. That is the first step. To work with everything as an incoming and outgoing frequency, and whether you can feel the flow, whether you can feel that intuitive flow within that information, in that partnership being shared, or not. The second step is, how will you as a conscious living being respond to that once you address it as this, that, you're working with different frequency attunements. This is again something that many humans would rather look under the cover about, and look away from. We don't always want to confront other people, other individuals, because it feels a little too exposed. We feel vulnerable when we do. And that is why a lot of times a lot of inauthenticity is created, because we're smiling at someone, we're actually thinking, oh, not good, or not resonating. But to be in this false perception when we actually wear a mask of needing to be polite and always generous and always abundant with everyone, well, perhaps there's those who are not yet reaching the light quotient that can enter that doorway, which would in a way create this harmonic frequency that aligns and creates the interlocking infinity symbol connection. They're not yet capable of doing that. And that's what you're feeling when you're feeling that misalignment. You can't feel the lock-in. You can't feel that stability. You're feeling, in a way, either falsehood, you're feeling a rejection, or you're feeling that repulsive energy, because that thing, it cannot lock in. Because once you embody truth completely, and that is a part of your divine union process, everything that somehow does not want to create that lock-in frequency, because there's such stability within you that does that, it feels like it's not in flow, because it's a little rigid. and it feels challenging in a way, and you can't really connect with either that what's being said or a person at large, or perhaps a group of people. It does not matter, because again, we're looking at everything as frequency. So the action part, how will we address the other, or that which was said, or that which sometimes is sold to us as truth but is not really embodying the vibration of truth? Let's say someone hides behind their deeds because they're shameful of what they have maybe done, because they have within themselves still a judgment of what they're actually bringing through, or something perhaps they've done within a misalignment, and they don't want to address it. They rather look away or avoid the topic. There's a lot of avoidance within human relationships and communication. But there is such victory when you become fully transparent, and you cannot be fully transparent when you just keep it for yourself, because transparency means it includes all. And that's the vulnerability factor that many want, but at the same time many fear. They don't want to fully step into. So in a way, filtering is a gateway that opens more allowance, because you actually filter that which feels unaligned. And again, when you do, you create a locking frequency, because you know your discernment, you know your understanding, and that lock-in frequency creates a new opening. And again, you can see more clearly with more greater expansion. So when people in a way use any kind of hiding, and you will feel it, because as a truth keeper, you will definitely feel that immediately, what to do. Because again, you will be feeling their frequency a lot of times, and you will feel they're kind of shameful or in resistance, and at the same time you will be in resistance, and you won't always want to say, well, but this is how it is, this is how this feels. So you rather just ignore it or look away or do something else. But as a part of the mastery and training, this includes to address every area, not just within the self, but a relationship, a complete mirroring process within the wholeness of all. Because that is the basic program of Source, is that through this mirroring process, and once it is fully transparent, union occurs. So transparency, filtering, how do these two actually match up? They're actually one and the same when you look deep enough. Because filtering means that you are choosing a clear pathway for yourself. It's that determination and the devotion to that which is sacred. And that first requires the knowledge of what sacred means. But that's not a logical knowledge. That is an understanding that comes from the core of the self. And that is why when you are aligned with the holy sacredness of life, and other people are sometimes saying things, but you feel they're not yet at the level of fully seeing the sacredness of life. Perhaps their deeds and actions many times are still expressing some of the duality. And again, you have a natural birthright to say, no, or no, that's not what I meant. No, that's not what I shared. No, that was not my initial stream of information. It is important when you establish this sacredness of life in your own sacred space to protect it. And again, that is in alignment with that analogy with the body that wants to keep itself always protected, pure and safe. Because the purity that comes with that truth connection will want to be always self-sustained. And a part of that process is the filtering. And so there does not have to be a guilt factor, a shame factor associated. Perhaps you say no to someone. Perhaps they like you, but you don't feel the same resonance. You don't feel they embody what you do. You don't feel they devote to the same thing, although they might be saying it, but you feel it doesn't somehow match with what you devote to. And to reverence the inner source, which was given in the Bible. It said to please the Lord is the only truth that, within yourself you have to fulfill through your daily attainments and alignments. That does not mean you please someone as a deity that's up there in heaven. That means that the only thing you truly need to be devoted and faithful to, that loyalty, is the inner union, the inner discernment, the inner source, to please only yourself, while in this world there's so much pleasing of others. And that is why the filtering factor needs to become more and more embraced, so that this false pleasing and wanting to be for everything, not all information serves everyone at the same time yet, because they need to first unlock the vibrational keys that will help them to align with that, to embrace that within them so that they can actually embody it, not just speak about it. And this is where you, the way showers, come in. Because first and foremost, you will be the ones who will be required to show and demonstrate utter vulnerability through this intimacy when you're fully transparent. So we have given you 3 basic keys. The first one is pure transparency, which leads you in alignment with the sacredness of life. Because once you're fully transparent, you understand the sacredness of life. There is no hiding. You cannot hide behind or, in front of anyone. There is no hiding before Source or the masters or the master teachers. You can only hide the ego, but even then, it's not truly hidden. It's a perception you have that it's hidden because you have created a certain, closing factor that makes you believe that. So transparency is in equal proportion aligned with how much you value the sacredness of life. The second thing is the discernment and filtering factor, which shows you which actions you will take once you feel either alignment or misalignment. So action is important. Instead of hiding, not doing anything, choose to act in a way that feels right for you in the moment without feeling shame or guilt. And thirdly is understanding the sacredness of life means there's a different value to each component of life, which is altogether all equally valuable. And yet, once you understand the evolutionary process of Source, you will also see that different stages of evolution of different Source aspects are migrating at the same similar level of frequency. So that is what you will have to, in a way, cherish as well. Just as well as that unity of all being the same and equal, also needing to cherish the evolving aspect of Source and where you are and where you stand and what you are devoted to within your own evolutionary process, which will in turn create and produce the most authentic human being that you can ever be, truly become and embrace in your true self. These 3 keys are the most important for yourself, but in majority to how you act in relationships. Because relationships are the most important factor on this planet. Nothing can be truly created without relating. But you must not confuse relating with pleasing. True relating always has to be authentic. And it is better to say no with full relation to the other than to say yes with that disengagement factor where you can't really engage and you only say yes because you feel somehow it's right, through some sort of external belief or external authority or perception, misconception. So these 3 keys are the most important to acknowledge the sacredness of life and how it unfolds through you. And why filtering and discernment is just as important as the allowance of all. Because when you say no to someone with something they share, that does not mean you don't let them live their own experience. You don't block anyone from having their experience. You're simply aligning yourself with what is natural, organic for you at your own evolutionary alignment, where you are in the process of the whole. You're not negating them. You're not judging them. You're simply not aligning with that, with the feedback that's being shared. And when you are aligning with the feedback that's being shared, you will feel it because you'll feel an ecstatic, explosive energy in your heart. So listen to your heart, not the mind, because a lot of times people mentally want to please the mind, or they will want to please you because you somehow feel you have it all figured out because you're so aligned with yourself. And they will say things to you to make you feel, oh yeah, well that person also has it. But it's not given through word. The truth cannot be given to another or cannot be said, I'm experiencing this. I surely am. You're experiencing. Everyone is experiencing. But again, The sacredness of life values each evolutionary process as equal, and yet within that lies the alignment within the variation of that process. That is why there's always a migration towards something that feels naturally resourceful for you and naturally aligned for you. And when you follow that, when you understand the resonance is just the same as non-resonance, it's all resonance. We just say yes or no because of part of the linear human thinking. But even when you don't resonate, you resonate because you still resonate with your truth. It's just as how it is. You're not in non-resonance. You're simply feeling the alignment of something that does not belong, and it's not created from your own pillar. So when you will master the pillar consciousness within yourself, you will so naturally be able to tune to everything and all as frequency, incoming and outgoing, because it will flow through your pillar, not just through your mind, not just through the thought processes or these beliefs that come externally, but it will always go through the pillar first, and that is how you will know, and that will be the source and the root of all the knowing and the way showing you're here to do. So thank you for being present with this message. We greet you all with such great love and depth, because only with depth and the increasing component of that depth, which is always ever expanding, you are going further into the depths of your being, into the depths of your resonance, and pleasing the self, which means more and more vibrating and aligning with the true core of your creation self. Thank you, and we wish you all such a beautiful experiencing of this alignment, which makes you guilt and shame free for good. So, as always, so much love and devotion. Take care.